What victory feels like. Yeah! And this was no ordinary victory. This was a fork in the road of human civilization. Okay. You know, there are elections that come and go. Some elections are, you know, important, some are not. But this one this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured. Thanks to you. We're going to have safe cities, finally, safe cities. Secure borders, sensible spending, basic stuff.
All right, we're live. And yeah, it's a lot happened again this week, of course. So we have a lot to discuss this week in our podcast. But let's start with the obvious thing, Kees. I saw some messages from you that Elon has become the new Adolf Hitler. Explain what happened.
Yeah, I'm not the only one. No, but I don't think Elon is Hitler. But Elon made an unlucky, arguably dumb move yesterday in the inaugural event of Donald Trump. He gave a very good speech. Very enthusiastic, like almost happy as a kid. And at the end, he grabbed his heart and he wanted to show that his heart goes out to everyone in the audience. But kind of unlucky. And I think it will cost him dearly because he knows the sentiment and the narrative that's already there. Media and politicians all around are trying to attack him, and not only him, but also the whole party he's now representing or being part of. It could have been easily avoided because it just confirms the narrative that they're trying to push. So that's why I think it's a dumb and unlucky move, but not at all do I think that Elon is Hitler in this regard.
You think it could be avoided? I mean, I don't know how you saw him on the stage, but it was more awkward than Elon normally is in his awkward state.
So it's pure
enthusiasm. It's just pure Elon, and there was no. I watched it, and I had no moment that I thought, oh, this is a wrong sign or something. It was 2 hours later. Then I got all these messages. I thought, huh? Did we get this out of this speech?
Yeah, that's the sad thing, and that's actually, it's very sad to be a witness of what exactly is happening.
From my point of view,
it's not a dumb move.
No, I fully agree, and it's from my
it's
point
a
of
dumb
view.
Mistake, then.
Also not.
Oh.
I think from my point of view, it's the final straw of this stupid game to call everybody Hitler when you do something awkward, and it's sort of that lame game of gotcha, I gotcha. Now you finally prove you're
so it's an
Adolf
extreme
Hitler.
of wokeism and cancel culture. Then.
Yeah, and it's stupid because it's a 5-second frame or whatever, 10 seconds, and then what happens. But I think the bigger thing here is people need to ditch that fear of being called right wing or being called a women hater or being called Adolf Hitler. Because that's obviously not the case. We're following Elon for more than 10 years, and many people in the media, and especially we're in the Netherlands, so the Dutch media always jumps on these kind of nonsense. And I think also everybody that wants to speak out, and we're happy that almost Zuckerberg and everybody opens up their platforms again. We need to ditch the mentality of being fear of doing something spontaneous and then being sort of marked for the rest of your life. While that is obviously not the case if you listen a little bit longer. So that whole gotcha game, from my point of view, just needs to end. And this, from my own view, this was so obviously not the intention of that whole that whole gesture. that it's actually sort of, as we texted about it, a sort of 4D chess move that nobody saw coming, right? Because media now portraying Elon as Adolf Hitler, they sort of raise their hands for themselves, being like, look at me, I'm totally untrustworthy because I only get 10 seconds out of a video and make my whole article about this stuff. So in the Netherlands, it's also funny, we can go into that, but it's very trendy nowadays to be a media platform or to be a politician, and to with a lot of tear-jerking messages saying, well, I'm going to leave X as a platform because X is now run by this megalomaniac right-wing fascist.
Tech billionaire oligarch.
Yeah. So all the labels that we can come up with are being used. And on the one hand, I find that sort of unfortunate because you want to have as diversity as possible on X with opinions, etc. But on the other hand, if people cannot, we really need to learn. I think you also mentioned that in one of the podcasts, Kenny, that one of the best ways to avoid sort of, misnews of misnarrative is just watch the whole thing from the original source.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you see an interview or just a headline, take a little bit more time and dive a little bit deeper. But what's your antidote to distilling the truth nowadays from messages?
And the Volkskrant also, they thought they had a scoop today.
Explain the Volkskrant.
Yeah, the Volkskrant's like it's one of the bigger newspapers in the Netherlands, and they claim to have a scoop, so that after the inaugural speech yesterday, if you on Instagram, on Meta, try to search for with hashtag Biden, hashtag Anthony Fauci, hashtag Harris.
You're still using hashtags on X, or?
No, it's not X, it's Meta. Okay. It's Instagram. Okay. I wanted to reply, why are we still using hashtags? But
exactly.
Not gonna bring myself into that conversation. But apparently they tried to switch the narrative that it's now that the oligarchy is there, that they're already deploying their social media to silence some results and do censorship. So that's also a very dumb scoop that they thought they had. A couple of hours later, they needed to rectify it. So I sifted down all the comments and they rectified it on all platforms. So that's a good thing. But like the message is already out there. And then only if you open the whole description, then you see like a short, really small disclaimer. It was just a mistake in the back end of, and not everybody.
And I think it's explain exactly what happens. It's like trying to establish a narrative. What are we looking for? Are we looking for the truth? Do we try to find something where we can get to the bottom of things?
No, just the confirmation of the narrative.
Yeah,
I do want to say one thing on the Elon stuff. So basically, the media is entertainment, right? I mean, we have to get a hook.
It has become entertainment.
Well, it has been. Like go back to the 1900s, media is entertainment. So I don't think that will change. But on the Elon thing, I was fully on board with Case. So I was first like, it's not kind of smart, he's a guy who's always in the midst of things. If there's something they can grab from him to put him in the black light, they try and do. No. Leave me one sec here. So I was first on fully on the side of Case, and then people ask me about it, but because people in my circle, they know that I follow Elon. They're like, "Hey, how can you follow this guy and what's up?" And I was like, "Okay, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna ignore it again, or am I gonna fight this?" But neither of those I did feel comfortable with. So I was like, "All right, how can I convince them?" But if you look back, there's a lot on social media now where you see Kamala Harris, where you see Barack Obama, like all the presidents with their hands up like this because they're speaking, because they're doing.
Yep.
So it's unavoidable. Yeah. So first I was like, it's stupid from Elon. And then I was like, but if everyone did it, it's unavoidable. So
as long as you look hard enough, you'll find it.
Yeah. So you have like Kamala Harris with her hand like this. And of course, she's also not a fascist or a Hitler or whatever. Yeah. So it's something that
calling it stupid makes the assumption that something is on purpose.
Exactly. So, right? First I was fully on board with Case, and then I was like, but it is unavoidable. So I don't think it's stupid.
It's almost the other way around. Okay, so the calling somebody a fascist or Hitler is is something that people are gonna
Pick
look
up on,
at.
yeah.
And then we're going to find some stuff in order
exactly.
to get that picture straight. And that's exactly what you're referring to. It's that we need to get out of that fear of being called something, because then it vanishes.
Because like the whole authenticity of it disappears by pushing this narrative. And that's actually very sad, because seeing this guy so freaking happy on the stage.
Yeah.
I've never seen him so happy.
Yeah, we
like
should
child.
endorse that, actually.
He was
instead
like
of
a small
beating it
child
down.
finally got well, it's true. He is the small child who gets his dream now.
Exactly.
We're going to Mars.
He got his candy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but I get really like this playbook of, say, okay, somebody says something, now he's a fascist, or he's a right-wing extremist, or he's a rapist, or whatever. Those kind of labels are actually very, very extreme labels, right? So to call somebody Hitler is, from my point of view, one of the worst things you can say to a fellow human being. And I don't know about the population on Earth, but if I look at the messages over the last, let's say, 10 years, our Earth consists of more than 10,000 Hitlers at this moment, because the name is being thrown around quite easy nowadays if you do something that that is not liked by others. Yep. So and to not be afraid of that label anymore is, I think, taking away the power of those kind of things, because if let's say I call you a rapist because whatever, you did not hire a woman or something in that realm, that's a super extreme thing to say to somebody, right? Mm-hmm. So and then of course when people attach that label to you, then your automatic reaction is like, no, I'm not this. But then you're defending yourself.
You want to fight it, yeah.
If you start defending yourself, you actually look sort of guilty of the thing, right? So it's a super powerful way to smear somebody, and I think it's also going to cause us a lot of lawsuits coming years, because people see the power of that. But I think if you know the facts and you can ignore that whole thing, you also see that it flies over if you don't give it any power at that moment. And I hope, this is my hope, probably not less hope, is that this is sort of the last straw of sort of mainstream media or whatever, people that want to jump on those bandwagons to make that happen. And of course, there's still a big group of people maybe that falls for that trick. But from my point of view, it's just a trick and nothing substantial.
I think it's actually going to get worse next couple of months. Like it's all holy houses, right? That they're trying to tear down. People that will not let it happen like that. Yeah. Like if I would be a media outlet and I have a certain way of doing my business, and now XCOM's doing it in a completely different way and becoming like the number one news app in like I don't know how many countries. Yesterday as well in the US. I would be afraid as well. So that they will try to fight it by grabbing attention from people.
And all those employees are also indoctrinated and like into this way of working. So they're gonna keep at it and
they're trained to get eyeballs on their stuff, right? Yeah. So
I think it goes further than just eyeballs. Of course, it attracts eyeballs, but it's also certain ideology that people still carrying out, and they always say Europe is 4 or 5 years behind trends that happen in the United States, right?
Nowadays it's 10, yeah.
Nowadays it's 10, yeah, but they always say, Europe traditionally follows what happens in the US. So therefore, I think also people are waking up to bureaucracies that has become too bloated in Europe. And it doesn't happen as fast as we maybe want. But I hear more and more conversations now already in Europe that people actually also want to reduce government spending, to slim down bureaucracies, because also here we have that it accumulates over time. Yeah. And we are also less and less part of the global conversation, while Europe in its whole is still from my point of view, very much a powerhouse. We have plenty of
And
citizens,
very globalist power.
very device culture, very good universities, good infrastructure, all that. So I think we can play a huge significant role in that, but then we need to also renew ourselves and transition, and therefore the whole mega movement comes in.
Let's hope they can serve as the catalyst that we need over here.
Yeah, but I think in Europe people are still more afraid than in the US. I think the US has a little bit more independent media like Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, and podcasts there are already sort of big and attract a lot of audience. Those kind of podcasts are also very big in Europe, so people get that message as well. But we don't have a lot of authentic voices here in Europe that they're coming up that are carrying out that message of freedom, of meritocracy, merit-based societies, basically colorblind societies, as we all want, I think. But it's a matter of time that it's going to happen here from my point of view.
Oh, it's actually strange because I think what's happening in the US right now is that the tech companies are actually getting into more power. We in Europe are saying we don't want those guys to be in power. But I think the next 5 to 10 years is all about AI, robotics, and the convergence of all these technologies together. And if you listen to Mark Andreessen, for example, he says if we didn't get into this situation where we are able to actually get AI and robotics running in US, we would have been hopelessly behind China. So if you look at our business that we are in electric vehicles, I mean, the US is behind China already in all terms, not only the batteries, but the whole supply system. Yeah. We've been following Tesla for 10 years, and Tesla has its own supply. It's vertically integrated. But that's why we said the OEMs in Germany will never get into electric vehicles because they don't have the supply, the whole infrastructure, the whole infrastructure, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 supplier systems. And what this Mark Andreessen says is, if you look at the electric vehicles, China is already won. If you look at robots and the whole supply system of robots, China is already won. If you look at AI and all the systems, the drones, etc., all the supply chains for the drones, China is already won.
It's already common sensor, yeah.
So they said, if we as US, if we're not gonna actually get our shit together and really get the regulation out of place and really build this infrastructure ourselves, we're going to lose big time against China. What the hell are we doing in Europe? I mean,
trying to regulate innovations that happened 10 years ago.
Yeah. So and we're framing that these guys are the bad guys.
Yeah.
But who are the bad guys? The Chinese. I mean, and they will conquer us, and they will conquer everything within our economies. Mm-hmm. So we have to really wake up and try to really think, okay, how are our economies going to look like between now and 10 years? It's all going to be AI, robotics, and technology driven. That's where the growth is.
Yeah. We need to take a strategic position.
And of course, we have our universities and we have our culture, etc. But we don't have a growing economy anymore.
Nope.
Our economy is going down.
We do have some things like ASML, but I agree, NXPE.
But let's say
but those are the only two.
Yeah, I agree. So we do have something, but not enough.
No, in Europe, of course, right? So I'm a bit more optimistic, although I also see that we lost those battles, right? So, for example, the discussion 10 years ago was exactly like you said. Well, if Volkswagen or the other big car companies enter the market, they will crush Tesla easily. Yeah, and everybody with a little bit
killers.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody with a little bit understanding knew that Tesla was basically a computer on wheels, and that it's that both on the software side, cooling side, battery side is an entire different product. And then actually having legacy manufacturers actually something that holds you back instead of jumping on that. So we've seen that discussion already happening, and China jumped on it, heavy subsidized car companies, and won that market. And if you win China, you can win the rest of the world, basically, because they're manufacturing powerhouses. I think I can be very optimistic on Europe when we have a different path. We need to embrace all the technologies. That's an obvious thing, and not smear like the technologies as being the enemy. But I think when you can combine the heritage, the culture, and amplify that with AI, you can do amazing stuff. And also, not trying to be disrespectful, but I think the whole inauguration was a little bit tasteless when it comes to, it's a beautiful building, but not as beautiful as we have buildings, for example, of previous European heritage. And also, if you look at German designs, German engineering, Italian designs, I think it still can be top of the world. Of course, there are many other companies that are trying to copy that, but it's also very difficult. Look at a Chinese car, even if they do the best on designs, it still looks Chinese.
Yep.
So I think that's very difficult, but we need to, we cannot be the leaders, but not being the leader can be something that can work out well for us. But I think we need to diversify in stuff.
Yeah, well, my point is that we need to wake up.
Yeah, that
and don't be so. I don't know.
What is wake up in your opinion?
Well,
are you advising us to become woke?
No.
Woke up.
No.
Well, understand what's happening in the US, and understand that there is a new wave coming, and it's under Trump. But Trump has all these guys assembled next to him who know and they understand what's happening. So not only on the self-driving vehicles, also space, but also AI. What's the role of AI going to be in the next 5 years? I don't think Trump has any idea, but he has.
I think he's getting somewhere.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he launched his meme coin 2 days ago, which you guys probably have an idea about. But I think it's just showing that there is a new world coming, and that there is no regulations around meme coins anymore.
Those tech billionaires have for a long time already been asking about AI, and they're active with AI. Like Nvidia is on it, Meta is on it, Google is on it, Tesla is on it. But there was also always regulatory backlash and trying to slow down those efforts. And I think it's a good thing under Trump that we're waking up to that. And it's a very good thing that Trump actually assigns people for holding office, high-level office, that can actually make decisions, that know their shit, and that are not like 60, 70-year-olds asking a question. Because I heard something about this TikTok ban, the banning of TikTok in the United States. There were like Kamervragen, that's the Dutch explanation, but members of Congress were asking questions. And these are people holding high-level jobs, high office in public jobs. And they ask, if I put in my headphones and it's connected to my phone, can TikTok know what's going on in my brain? Like those basic, really fucking dumb questions. And those are the people being paid by taxing expenditures to form and decide about regulations. So it's a breath of fresh air that these tech guys who know their shit, who are in it for decades already, are finally having the choice to mingle in this conversation.
I think the argument against, which you see quite a lot, is like, all right, but aren't they getting too much power? I think that's the argument that you see against it. So I'm not against it, actually. I think we have to work together, use common sense, use like really knowledge, having the knowledge of the technology, and then finding solutions to it. And people think that like Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Sundar was there as well from Google, and Elon, that they're like really, really like everything should be open markets, etc., etc. But Elon is actually also pretty vocal about some things that he likes the government to take action in. So to make stuff safe, make the streets safe, etc. So it's not all just business.
Yeah, I actually agree on the part of don't let the tech companies just run free, because it's not always in the best interest of a country, and you need to be people, exactly like Kay said, with deep understanding of the thing to work together with them. And I think the climate, as I see how it was in the Netherlands like 20 years ago, when I go abroad and people say, oh, you can buy your stuff on Amazon. And then I say, well, actually, in the Netherlands, there's bol.com, and they won their competition of Amazon.com. So basically, they got a better product. And the climate of the new internet boom was very much, let's say, the internet boom in '99. There were so many Dutch companies outcompeting their American counterparts, right? So many SaaS solutions in the Netherlands are super high standard, very good. But now there's a climate that in the new revolution of AI, all the talent is leaving and then not building their counterparts in Europe and in Netherlands anymore, right? So instead of seeing a Dutch alternative for ChatGPT or something like that, and of course it's very expensive to enter those markets, but that same was true in 1999, for example. At that time we had Hives, and Hives was outcompeting Facebook big time, but just because of lack of funding of Hives, so they could not expand their server parks. So Hive was growing in Egypt, Hive was growing in Peru, all those countries that were outcompeting Facebook, but they did not have the funding. And I think that's the big part, or not the investors that were able to put in a lot of resources. And that is, of course, a big advantage of the US, because you already have a market of 300 million people, and people are willing to bet way more heavily than parts in Europe. But we have shown over the years that we can outcompete on, let's say, the local market. And I think when the AI is only fed like very, very international, so to speak, things, Dutch won't be the main language of the AI, but I think in that diversification lies a lot of beauty. Like the Russian language is a whole different language than Dutch or English, etc.
Every language has its own intricacies.
Yeah, but if we are creating, I think now it's more a cultural problem, and maybe Florian, you've been to that 99 transition as well back then. If we create a culture where anti-technology, anti-improvement, anti-that, that's obviously a very destructive thing.
Yeah, back in the day, they were very happy to deploy those tech companies for their own benefits, and now it's time to regulate them. And slow them down.
Like the vibe, let's say back in 2000 was very much like, okay, well, there's a new exciting thing. It's called the internet. Let's all jump on it, start building stuff, build local things, and you saw so much, and of course there are Dutch companies or European companies doing stuff with AI. But the top engineers are moving so fast to other countries where they can also make a lot more money with their team.
Yeah, and then on the let's go there on the crypto coin from Trump. I think Melania went online as well.
Melania has her own, and Barron started the coin, right?
Could be, but let's start with you, Florian.
What do you think?
What's your take?
Yeah.
For me, it's a sign this is going to be a new era of this kind of blockchain-based tokenization and funding of new enterprises. And this is just a meme coin, but it shows, okay, I'm the president of the US, and I just have the balls to put it on a meme coin on the day before I go into office.
Big ball.
Everything is allowed now.
Yeah.
And we came from a situation where everything was not allowed. So a situation of fear, I believe.
Yeah.
Fear of, if we're going to allow this, then what's going to happen?
better not do it today because tomorrow is the
Yeah,
inauguration.
so I think Zuck wanted to launch his coin.
That's not the only thing he wanted to launch yesterday, I guess.
Yeah, he was doing something else yesterday.
Yeah.
His attention was somewhere else. So I think we are entering also with DOGE, we are entering a new AI-based kind of governance, not only hitting the governance in US, but also we will see new kind of entrepreneurship around this because the rules are, the environment is being open. There are no rules around it. There are no taboos anymore. And you can just do and try and go.
Yeah.
And but of course, I'm not a fan of meme coins. I've never been into crypto at all. But I do want to launch a coin for Mr. Green, for example, where the coin is correlated to an asset, and where the assets has real cash flow and real
backed by a physical asset,
backed by real value. And then if it's all based on the blockchain, we can trace everything. The cost of getting funding is going to be very low. It's going to make everything so efficient, and that's what I'm rooting for. And that's, for me, this was the switch
catalyst. Yeah,
the catalyst from this is going to be our new way of doing business together.
Yeah, we're there now.
Instead of having all these middlemen, I mean, our balance sheet, Mr. Green, is funded. We have 200 million euros on the balance sheet. We have 6 banks. We have a whole team of middlemen helping us getting this funding. And I'm sometimes thinking, what the fuck are we doing? I mean, I can also launch a coin and have everybody become a member of our cars, and it could be so much more efficient. The only thing I have to do is just talk about it, create a community, and then we're off, and we can go global.
Yeah.
So that's for me was the light bulb.
I really like your take because, and I fully agree because in the end, let's say the track record, I was more in the loop like, okay, the track record of meme coins is not so good. It's pump and dump, rock pools and all that. And the community is all over the place with those kind of things. But
the Hack Tour coin.
Yeah.
It was a big success.
Disappeared.
Nowhere to be found.
And I don't like when I see scams, right? So I don't like when people are hyping up something as something. But on the other hand, many of those investors are knowing what they're entering because there's a big track record of those meme coins as well, a long time. And in the end, I think the transition that we're going to see is that more and more people are going to wake up for that they are responsible for their own decisions. So if you just invest your latest money into a coin that is just released and being hyped up, you have not done your due diligence as an investor. So you should not be an investor in the first place, right? And it's a bit of a hard take, like, oh, that's so sad for all the people that participated and put their own money in. But when in a new market, people also need to wake up to the dynamics of a new market. Let's say, I think none of us has invested in a meme coin with a long-term conviction. Maybe you want to play, or that's gambling, what you do. But if you gamble, you know, it's just like going to the casino and putting your money on number 24.
That's exactly.
And hoping you get a 36x return because it hits your number. And that's a gamble mentality. And gambling is also sort of legal, right? So you can do that.
State-owned here.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of money in the gambling market. And I personally see meme coins as gambling. But I like your take that, okay, you can make people enthusiastic for your vision. If your vision is to launch a meme coin, you can get people excited. Yeah, go for it.
No, I don't know enough about coins and stuff like that.
There's only 50 million people at this moment trading coins.
Yeah, that's almost
the
nothing
whole
if you look
world.
at the world population.
So we are still in the infancy of this whole new industry. And
Yeah, but it
but
has
if,
been
if,
around.
if you look at it, it's just digitalization of the whole system that we have right now,
Yeah.
which runs on Windows, I believe. The software of the central banks and the normal banks. I mean,
I
it's
think it
completely
still runs
outdated.
on
So
Windows 2000.
I think that we will see DOGE come in, and DOGE will be the
And
digitalization of
not
government.
not the coin, but the department, DOGE.
Yeah, the department DOGE.
Yeah.
So not the Doge coin,
Yeah.
which is a wink to the Doge coin.
Of course, yeah.
But maybe we will see a coin correlated to the Doge system. I don't know. Maybe we can become a citizen-owned, government-regulated asset. I have no idea yet, but it will spark a lot of creativity, a lot of entrepreneurship when you're able to actually raise money on a more efficient and less cost basis.
Yeah.
Yep.
And people need to become more sovereign. I think that's a good word for it.
Yeah.
More resilient and learn about where they have to put their money into.
And form small communities.
And not be tied down right now. What we have learned the last 60 years is, no, put your money in a pension fund. And they will fix it for you.
Yeah.
Then, that's what Robert Kiyosaki always said. He said, if you are giving your money away to other people to manage it, you will never learn how to invest your money.
Nope.
And I think 99% of the people still have no clue how they have to spend their money. It's almost pathetic, you know.
I think you're now talking about like two ends, right? So I think on the one hand you have the pension funds, on which I'm totally on the same page, but on the meme coin stuff, like we assume a lot of things, yeah. So we assume like you shouldn't invest if you do your due diligence. People need to be educated, but it's fairly simple to say because some people have like less capacity to be educated to understand certain stuff. So I think there should be like it shouldn't be regulated to the fullest. But I think also the guy from Coinbase said like I actually want more regulation because now people who want to do harm actually take advantage of the system being open, being the wild west. Yeah. So I think like your vision on it's a new time, etc. I completely agree, but I don't see. So it's a nice signal, but couldn't we do it on the other way? Because now people will still get trapped in, oh shit, it's a hype. I want to put in my money. They lose a lot of money to like people who do the rug pulls, who get in early. Like, I think it's just a waste of energy and also just gives people a way to say like, hey, Trump is not that good. He makes a shit coin and people get rocked.
But I do think you need both because, for example. Now more days. So, for example, when you are your own boss, right? Let's say you say in the Dutch it says you're a freelancer, right? Many of the freelancers they use ETFs to build up their pension for the future, because the ETFs is so to say a sort of innovation that jumps in. Like, okay, people want to do this more and more themselves
instead of a managed fund.
Yeah. So, but if you only have like let's say one taste or a few tastes or the illusion that you have some choices, then that innovation is not going to happen. And that's the problem what we see in Europe in many cases. For example, many of those ETFs I cannot buy here in Europe, Netherlands. Well, that's just the innovation and just my own choice how I want to...
For instance, the ARK Invest ETF, ARK Invest cannot buy them over here.
Yeah, so ARK Invest is an ETF that follows the Elon Musk companies and things in the Tesla space.
Well, there are ways to get in, but it's not easy for the common practice.
No, it's not like you open your local broker and do that.
Nope.
No.
And but if you we that with all regulation all the time, then new innovation cannot come in.
No, I fully agree.
And I think we need to. If you talk about sovereign decisions, that of course it needs to start at the bottom. So it can be maybe 20, 30 years before you're at that spot. But that sovereignty is also not taught in schools, for example, right? So it's you just follow the plan and you work and you're following your career, and a part of your money goes into a pension fund. But and then the pension fund, you cannot talk about it, and it's sort of taboo to talk about it. But in reality, I asked my dad, he was going to pension, and I said, Dad, can you now just, get all your money that you put in your pension fund and decide yourself?
No.
No, that's not possible.
Well, let me tell you two things. So actually the money that's in a pension fund on your name is not your money.
It's not your money.
And the second one is it's mismanaged. So I shared it on X. Maybe you've seen it. Mm-hmm. I think, so I was working at Deloitte before, built up my pension, went away there in 2021. And I actually asked the guys, hey, can you put it on Apple? No. Can you put it on Tesla? No, you can only choose our own funds. I was like, no, I don't want that. Just put it in the S&P 500. Don't trade it, because you pay for all the transactions they do. They have their own funds. They get like commissions on those funds. And they're like, no, you're not getting it. And I was like, but it's my money, right? Yeah, but you can only invest in it through our funds. So it's actually not my money. Yeah. I cannot do anything. Because then I said, give it to me. They said, no, we cannot give it to you. I was like, well, just give it to me and then I'll pay the taxes. No, it's not possible. But now there's a second story. So as you know, I've got my own company now, and we got employees, and we said, well, we'll arrange the pension stuff. And in the US, you have your 401k. Yeah. Like you cannot do anything on margin. I think you can actually buy calls and that kind of stuff. So it's pretty risky, but they have some boundaries, which I think are healthy, because you cannot blow up your account. Mm-hmm. But you're actually free to put it wherever you want. But they don't have that concept in the Netherlands, and it's just mind-blowing that it's not here. But there are some companies which are close to it, so they have like trackers and
so companies like Brand New Day,
they make their own they make their own funds based on the S&P 500, so not trading all the time.
It's a very recent development that we're seeing this. In the Netherlands,
so let me tell you, I did internally with our people. I was like, hey guys, I think this is a better solution. It's up to you. It's your pension. Let me know what you want. They just go for the old-fashioned stuff.
Yeah, and
because it's easy, they don't have to think about it, and it's everybody did it for years
and pension
and years.
At some point in the past was an innovation, and the innovation of the pension was like the factory worker. He got his salary on Friday, so the salary was still being given physically. We did not have digital solutions at that moment. Mm-hmm. And the factory worker just got his money in his pocket on Friday, and the first thing he did with it is ran to the bar and spent all his money.
Had a nice life though,
right? Yeah, I don't know.
Beautiful.
I'm not sure, but
sounds like Kees.
Sounds like you. Yeah, exactly.
Not at all. Not at all.
So
keep me out of this.
And at that moment, it was like, okay, this is causing problems because the men become violent, and the families and the women don't have any money in their household. Mm-hmm. So they found a sort of collective solution, which was a great thing at that moment.
Back in the day, yeah.
Back in the days, but now let's say the average employee here in the Netherlands is still being treated as an illiterate factory worker that wants to drink every Friday because he cannot, control his own impulses
and spending.
But I think it's very important, because I think when that's the mindset you're running things with, it's not going to improve, right? And now in the Netherlands, also many people working as freelancers, as independents for themselves. So many people want to work as independent people and say, okay, let me do my own thing. And of course, many people also like a contract, but there are all sorts of people. But at least there needs to be a conscious moment where you can say, like, do you want to do it yourself? There's a solution for that. Or do you want to do it something in between, like you do it, but we help you? Or do you want it to do fully yourself? Well, these are the potential consequences, right? If you're doing it yourself, maybe the return is, if you let it do centralized, then the return is not so big. That's and risky. Then you say, okay, it's a collective solution. So the money isn't actually yours, right? But that has some pros and cons. So, for example, you die young, okay, then it's for the others. But when you become very old, it's in your benefit. So what do you want? Or doing it yourself, maybe have a higher return, but maybe a market crash comes and you cannot do anything.
If the timing is off, you're
fucked, yeah. So, but at least and I think it's a super fundamental thing, right? A pension for somebody. So
Yeah, of course.
you
And
need to have education around it.
Yeah, and also like, for example, my dad is an engineer. Like, he's not busy with money or wants to like read about it. So we should have some boundaries for people to do it in a safe way. But this system is just, I think it's the worst. It's ruining people's money.
But it's just old fashioned. Exactly as you
Yeah,
explained.
true.
We're entering a new age. We're already 30 years into the information age, and now we're going to AI age.
Yeah.
Which is a very
I
painful
mean,
phase in transition for everyone.
I will put all my money into this statement I'm going to make right now.
Yeah.
Is that AI will be better at running your money than the pension fund manager.
I think we're still far behind, because it's also basically dependent on how you are as a person, a lot of psychological factors as well. But I think what I do like, so I agree fully on the AI. It's going to change a lot more than we think now. But what I like more is if we enter into an era which is about common sense. And because that's going to be the basics. If there is still no common sense and we build AI models based on not common sense, or have rules which are not common sense, we end up in the same direction, same place. Only with the help of AI. And that's what I liked about the inauguration yesterday of Elon, where he basically said, we're gonna not spend money we don't have. Well,
we're gonna have safe cities.
We're gonna have safe cities. Just basic stuff.
Basic stuff.
Common sense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what it should be, right?
Yeah.
That was the best clip of the whole
And the same
speech,
is with the pension funds. And as you said, if we look back at that moment, it made sense. Now maybe it doesn't. Let's start from scratch. Like how can we best set it up?
I think it's also, we've been patronized, is that a good word?
Yeah, it's we've
by
been held small.
our governments.
Yeah,
definitely.
We've been seen as small childs.
But that's
exactly this discussion.
That's exactly the basis.
We have no idea how we should do preventive health. Well, that's one of the things that is actually with AI. We're going to learn what we need to eat.
Yeah.
And we probably get a whole menu. Okay, if you eat this, you will live 120 years.
It has been very
and you will not have all this medical costs, etc.
But let me give you the problem. What happens if we change the whole pension plan? We're gonna all right. Let's start from scratch. Let's have common sense and go there.
No, I think
a lot of companies will go bust. They will go.
I think this is the critical point. What you want to have is options. And if the pension is being forced on you, which is basically the case right now, they basically say,
then you're being patronized.
Well, Mr. Kenny, we need you to participate into this Ponzi scheme. Otherwise, if you don't participate into this Ponzi scheme, we have a giant problem. And this problem is so big that we need a bailout of the government to do this, because the government is also participating in this. Because, those two are basically tied, right? So the pension funds and governments are basically tied together. And of course, it needs de-strangulation of that. And people that are say, I'm going to work as an independent, already doing it. So they're not contributing into this thing. I, as an employer, we're all employers here in this podcast. We have very limited options. And then we say to our employees, well, you can do this, but it's actually not the best option that I would recommend if I would give you personal advice. So I think because it's a super fundamental thing for the rest of your life, right? So it's if I'm contributing to this and it's not my own money, but I want to be part of this collective thing, well, do your thing, it's you're free to do it. But it's not, people now are wired like this is a sort of safe haven and it will always work.
I agree.
Which is not the case.
But that's not weird.
Because it took into account that people only live till, let's say, 70 years. And if everybody goes on an AI blueprint.
The state is different. We have a welfare state in Europe.
Let's create a podcast episode where we're like common sense investing, helping people how to do it.
Yeah.
Buy S&P 500.
Subscribe now.
But it will also be problematic if
go all in on Tesla.
let's say
not financial
advice.
let's say when everybody will take a ETF, then it's also problematic, right? So because then the power laws are different. But what I want to create,
okay.
Let's say you can only pay with a certain coin. So, for example, in Europe, all the transactions are being done with a euro, right? And you don't want a sort of Wild West, but it's very difficult to let's say the owner of that coin, which is now the European Central Bank, right? So there's an owner of every currency that we already have, right? But if you don't agree with the policies of that owner, so let's say they're printing much money, and you don't like that,
you don't have anything.
You don't have an alternative.
Or you can buy dollars.
You can buy dollars, but it's very unusual to go with your dollars in your hand to the local grocery and say,
We
don't accept it.
We don't have it in our hands. Like you can go to Revolut and just put everything in dollars.
Chinese
yen,
but
whatever you want.
Let's say the daily transactions are not being accepted, and of course it can be sort of Wild West. And you also don't want to bring your Chinese coins and all that. No. But let's make merchants. Let have merchants make decisions like we want to accept that.
There are problems. So let's say, for example,
some more payment methods.
And I've been with
Options.
you on Aruba, and they skim my credit card, sitting at home. People are buying stuff with my credit card while I'm eating, so it's not going well. I call the bank and they fix it, right?
Yeah.
You can also use money. Like you have old people being called, give me your password. I actually saw somebody who had it with crypto as well, lost 100K. You like, how do you get it back? So there are problems within that ecosystem, which I still think they need to fix, and you need to have it. The one thing I was thinking about is like, but how then? Because the US government also has Bitcoin. I think they confiscated. I'm not sure how they did it, but like these kind of things, they need to be solved, in my opinion, before we can go to a really open system.
Trading dollars for Bitcoin and building a reserve.
Trading dollars for Bitcoin and building a reserve.
Yeah, building a Bitcoin reserve.
Yeah, and then what?
As a backup solution to have like a basic, like a fixed amount of coins in their own holding.
They do have it with USD Tether. So I don't know I'm not a crypto guy or know a lot of things. I try to understand it and I just can't. So
I feel to grasp it as well.
I got this tweet from Balaji, and he says, the crypto economy has been technically feasible for a while. It just became politically feasible. That's the difference. That's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened 2 days ago. So he says from now on, all payments will use stable coins. SpaceX is using stable coins because it's a lot more expensive to have all these different currencies. And so that's one. All companies are going to raise online. Going to be much easier to actually get your company funded, get your idea funded, and actually create entrepreneurship and grow the economy. With AI, you're going to see every kind of system that we already have. We can replace it with an AI kind of company, and all systems go. And this is one of my biggest things that he also says, all accounting goes on-chain. This system of accounting that we're working on right now is so outdated. I cannot believe that even within Mr. Green, we have 6 people for accounts payable, accounts receivables, and people just putting in invoices into the system. It's like...
Yeah, but I'm a little bit skeptic here. I don't think it will work, but let's see.
This is what I hope the world was going to look like in 5 years or 10 years. That's what I'm... praying for.
They didn't have accounting back in the 17 or 1600s as well. They didn't end well. So came from a position. But I agree.
The blockchain is the most sensible way of doing accounting. It's live, it's transparent, and you don't have to double check every time. You can put the whole accounting stuff on chain. It could be so easy. Every time you pay, it's right in the books. And instead of having, if exactly what we've been talking about, that if you go to a meeting like this and you pay and you get the receipt, you have to put the receipt into a declaration kind of thing. Then somebody needs to put it in, and then you get your money back from your your
So 5
Employer.
extra,
your LLC or whatever.
Yeah.
5 extra steps for one simple transaction.
But you are like, oh, I don't want to do all this old-fashioned stuff, and I just pay it private, and I don't care
I
if
don't
it's
want
private.
it.
I'm not even going to declare these expenses.
Yeah, my time is
what
more
I do.
expensive than
But
spending time on declarations, right?
I would go to a coffee shop where everything is on chain, and my account is coupled, and it will be just transferred like that.
Very
That
good
will
point.
be one of my reasons to go there to coffee shop.
Let's,
For example.
let's
Yeah,
invite someone
let
for
me
the
make
next episode.
a small bridge on, let's say, DOGE deregulation. Because I think regulation is very much misunderstood. Let's say deregulation. I think everybody agrees that there needs to be rules somewhere, right? But I think the best analogy is from Elon. Say, well, do you want to play, let's keep it a soccer game, right? Where you have 10 referees on the pitch and just 10 players. Now, obviously, you don't want that, right?
So now we have 1,000 referees because we have a camera at every angle.
Yeah, but it's more like the philosophy, like when there are too many referees on the pitch, the game cannot be played.
Yeah, but there's 2 different things. You have regulations and you have enforcement of regulations.
Yeah.
So regulations is like the basic
The
rules
rules.
of the game.
Yeah.
And then enforcing it are the arbiters or referees.
Agents.
Yeah.
Agents.
Yeah.
But there need to be a right. So then when you sit together, let's say we want to have a podcast and I suddenly start up and start shouting, right? So some things you don't need to explain to people, but if it happens, there's a sort of corrective. That's the sort of scenario that you don't think of before you start putting in
Social control. Kind of.
in rules, right? So, but at a certain point where people collaborating with each other, you say, okay, listen, gents, this is going to not work. Let's put together a bunch of rules. And then there's a problem. Who's going to reinforce the rules? Nobody wants that normally, but then there are...
A really interesting point, because that's exactly the playing field that we're in right now, because we're trying to, like what Trump and DOGE, everybody's doing, they're trying to get rid of those old rules that prevent us from moving forward into the new era, for which the rules still need to be thought and made. You know, it's like all existing frameworks, we're noticing that we're reaching the boundaries and there's tension all around. So we need a new mechanism or a way of like social and economic order structuring.
Yeah, and I think that the podcast is also a little bit about Tesla, right? Do we have any news on the agenda? You're the guy for the agenda, okay? So
I was forced in this role.
If we leave it up to Damien, we're gonna do very crazy things.
Damien.
And
apparently, he's a good referee. You know, you see.
I don't agree with that. If we leave it up to Mr. Weave, we're weaving all the time.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I can't wait to weave again.
We've talked about AI and a lot of politics until now.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to grab something, put something on the screen right now. We have a Tesla.
Is it a photo of Damien in his underpants last week on the mountain with a
naked,
beer, with beers and smoking?
Yeah,
like a regular Sunday.
Okay, this is some Tesla dedicated news. I saw this one. This is posted by Tesla Newswire, and they put out a Tesla estimated timeline.
Who is Chloe?
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
that's.
I got distracted.
I don't know. It's what's happening in Chloe in Wonderland. Let's
don't click on it, guys. Don't click on it.
I'm wanting to click.
Don't
he has
get
the
distracted.
urge. I see it in his eyes.
No, but we have a couple of events, important events lined up for 2025, also 26, 27. I thought it would be a good idea to just walk it through. Yeah, it's insane. It's a trending in the Netherlands.
Nazis.
They're back.
Insane. But let's just run through this topic. What do we expect for the coming year? And let's get it back together to Tesla. So last week we already discussed new Model Y release in Asia Pacific. We shortly discussed that first production is already starting in Berlin.
Do we got like confirmation from it? I think there was some.
There was
rumor,
some
right?
confirmation, and at the end of this month, the factory production will be shut down to optimize the production line to get ready for deliveries in May. So we're getting there, and I'm tentatively hearing stuff about it for a US release as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a bit of a weak list because the opening of the new factory in China is not there for energy and things in Model 26, Model 3 refresh. That's already happening, and that's sort of ongoing thing.
But a Model 3 refresh could be like similar with the improvements that we see now in the Model Y, which are very different from the Model 3 refresh. So maybe an additional refresh will be brought out. And it's not about like how good the list is, for instance, but more like a rundown. What do we miss here? What do we think in terms of timelines? Because yeah, it's not the best list out there, but
yeah, I think 25 will, let's say it's a good list. Yeah. So the list,
I don't really care if it's a good or a bad list.
Let's say if it's a good or a bad list. And there are obviously some very obvious things that are going to happen. And if FSD launch, for example, now is announced in 26, maybe it's in 25. But I think 25 will be the year where we can truly start seeing the potential of Tesla and the Musk economy, so to say, because it's being unleashed by the Trump government. So nobody takes into the equation that, for example, Boring Company can play a big role. Everybody starts drilling for oil again. Boring is not going to drill for oil. That's not their business model. But we're going to dig tunnels again. And all that projects that Boring can innovate in, they're all now being on hold. Right? New factories for Tesla, normally that would take years and years before we can get through and get our permits. Yeah. Now we can, and I think the impact of deregulation is so big that we cannot comprehend it yet. So for example, if you want to mine lithium, the permits to mine lithium take almost 8 years. And Tesla found a way in Texas. So they basically said, well, let us try it if Texas is feasible for doing this thing. So Tesla already has a lithium refining company in Texas. Yeah. But there are so many areas where the waiting list to get something started is so ridiculously long that 25, maybe it's 26, maybe it's 25, but I think knowing Elon and knowing how fast they can move and how fast companies want to move, because companies actually want to do it, but they need to basically said, okay, we need to wait before everything can happen. Yeah. So therefore 25, okay, we can talk about some obvious things. Maybe the semi will ramp and all that. That's nice. But 25 can be a very, let's say, I would not short a stock at this moment because it can be a sort of very surprising year with a lot of new announcements and a lot of things that will happen much faster than we used to.
That we previously didn't think of.
Yeah, so for example...
What will be the big things then, you think?
For example, Shanghai, got their factory done in 9 months. If you look at the mega factory produced in China, was up and running in 6 months, right? So let's say China doesn't have so much regulation as we have in Europe and the US. So they got it done, a gigafactory done in 9 months. You know how insane it is. And for example, Tesla as a company, they always talked about their factories as being the machine that builds the machine. So the blueprint of building new factories and do it at in a time schedule that we cannot, on traditional timelines are like insane.
Elon speed.
Normally, so for example, Berlin took 2 years. Yeah.
Could have been done way faster if we rule out the red tape.
Yeah, and for example, Giga Texas was done in even a little bit less time, but still compared to China, way longer. So, for example, launches of CyberCabs, all that. Of course, there will be some regulation, but the rollout of those kind of things will happen so much faster than our traditional timelines, where we need to jump through a whole lots of hoops, and especially with exactly like Florian said in the beginning, people that know their stuff now being involved into the government. So the ex-executive of Uber is now on the board on Tesla, taking care of transportation. That guy knows all the inside outs of what happens into the transportation market and what the trends are, what are coming, rideshare, ride-hailing, all that. And that is so useful, because when we have a discussion about something new, and coming back to Kees's point where people said, well, do I have my earplugs in? Can they then read what happens?
The retards.
If I need to explain sort of new concepts to you, you come in very abstract terms. But if you already have insiders working together with the companies that are innovating, those timelines will be very fast. And okay, I agree with you, it still needs to happen, but this is at least the promise of, let's say, the Trump government, right? And so for the first time in my Tesla shareholder, history, I was always like looking at, okay, what to expect, what not to expect. But this time I'm going to sit back a little bit and let me surprise how fast things can go.
So essentially what you're saying is like these timelines, you couldn't care less because it's going to change drastically in the coming months.
So for example, a Cybertruck rear wheel drive. Okay, well, that's going to happen, but when, maybe fast, maybe not. But I think many things will happen so fast. And that get me excited. And obviously Elon knows this because he's jumping on stage like he's a little kid, because he can finally start building things. And you heard what Elon said? He said, okay, listen, people, I'm going to work my freaking ass off for everybody, for you here in the crowd. Yeah. That guy is super pumped up to start working again.
That
and
should
doesn't
have been the nugget that it would have been all out there on the news media, because that's exactly what the guy is going to do. And that's exactly how his whole frame on the world is.
Yeah, so the whole mindset of 25, 26, 27. And
it
of course,
less relevant.
I don't have the magic ball where I can predict all of this kind of stuff.
Too bad.
But to know that the most innovative companies in the world and the most innovative entrepreneurs are now not being tied down, and everybody wants to play.
They're unleashed.
They're unleashed. And for example, the technology of the Boring Company, that is so freaking amazing. And the growth, let's say, the Boring Company can get up to speed and they can get 1 mile done in, let's say, 1 day. That's a 10 to 100x improvement of current boring technology that can happen. And of course, we know that with every mile of tunnel that is being drilled, Teslas will drive through them. And it can be Tesla vans, it can be CyberCabs, it can be all of that.
Yeah, like Hyperloop in Vegas.
But let's
Robovan is made for the tunnel.
Let's take the hypothesis, that the Boring Company will now start manufacturing. What is the name of their machine again? Do you know that from top of your head?
The name of the boring machine itself. No, but I'll dive into it.
Look it up. But let's say
I know that,
but let's say Tesla, and the whole mission of the Boring Company was always beat the snail, right? So they needed to be faster than a snail, and that in terms of boring speed. But now let's say, does Elon Musk and does Tesla and SpaceX, etc. have Proof-Rock, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's ask ourselves the question: do they have manufacturing capabilities? Yes, of course. Everybody knows Tesla and SpaceX has manufacturing capabilities. The Proof-Rock, the new technology, normally you first needed to dig a pit before it can start drilling. Now it just goes into the ground and start drilling itself. But let's take a hypothetical situation in 25 where 5,000 or 10,000 of these proof rocks are going to be built, right? And every one of those 10,000 proof rocks is able to drill a mile. Now suddenly we can create 10,000 miles of road in one day, extrapolate that for a whole year and put all Teslas in that. So therefore, I know this is one of the capabilities of the Elon Musk companies if they can get unleashed. And so we cannot rule out that crazy scenarios of such a transition can actually happen. And therefore you see that guy jumping up and down because he's excited about that future where he can reduce time in traffic, soul crushing traffic in Los Angeles. If you leave it to Elon, he will solve that problem within 2 or 3 years, no problem. Yeah, and so therefore a list of 25, I'm happy with it, right? So
this is the last time I'm putting up a list on the screen.
So it's a shit list.
The message has come across very clear. No.
Yeah, but not discount it. But I think being excited about the rear-wheel drive of Cybertruck, this is not the excitement that Tesla brings as a company. But maybe you are, Kenny. So. You're waiting for the rear-wheel drive?
No. It's about two things.
You're betting against Elon in 25, 26?
Yeah, I'm short, heavily short. No, for me, it's still two things. So it's FSD and Optimus. That's the two things I'll keep a close eye on. Like the Boring Company, etc. I think
it's
energy.
So I'm completely on the same page. And I actually think, so we discussed it in our app yesterday, I think somebody should really write a book on how he's being so effective. Because at that scale, and we've like all managed companies or teams, like having 5 people sometimes gives you headaches, So, yeah. But he does it on like a country scale. He does it on like 10,000s, 100,000s of people scale. It's insane.
Yeah.
So, but
it's AI.
His brain
might
is
be.
already AI.
Might be.
It's Grok. Grok will run all his companies.
Could be.
Yeah, but let's do this sort of thought exercise together, right?
Yeah.
Let's say Tesla can manufacture in the coming 3 years. Yeah. Let's take 4 years to be a bit conservative here. Let's say they can manufacture 10,000 proof rock machines.
Yeah.
That's drillers, right?
Those Boring Company drillers. Let's say how many new factories, if there's no red tape, can be deployed for energy and robotaxis or cybercabs, right? Shout the number. If there's no, if you have the funds are there.
I think they can build 10 factories in the US a year, and it will take them 8 months to build it. So within a year, they can build 10 factories where they can pump out 2 million cybercabs.
Let's take let's take 10.
They can build 10 factories in 4
years. Let's be conservative, right?
And then they can build 20 million cybercabs a year.
Yeah, if there's no backhaul.
And the US only needs 25 million cybercabs, I believe, in order to replace all the current cars on the road.
I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm also not saying it's not going to happen. But we need to take it into consideration that the timelines that are being put out in the past, because in Tesla, you have this guy called Tom Zhu, right? He's called the Chinese... He's now back to China, but his original plan was to speed up the whole realization of rolling out a machine that makes a machine, so putting out more factories faster. But then Elon got strangled by all the regulations. And of course, we also know that Trump said to Elon, like, listen, I don't want you to build the biggest factory in the world next to the border here in Mexico. Listen, my friend, we're going to collaborate, but that factory is going to be in the US and not somewhere else. And Elon said, well, okay, let's agree on this. We help each other. right? Because they met a couple of years ago. But then you need to get rid of all this nonsense that is holding me back. So for me, those kind of things will be the wild cards. Let's say for the I'm already bullish on Tesla on, let's say, traditional timelines where traditional regulation is there. But I'm even more bullish if the Trump administration can keep his promise.
You said let's do a thought experiment, but I think if it's going to accelerate anything, and let's then focus
what would be the fastest
on Tesla, I think it will be humanoids.
What will be the fastest, let's say, if you take sort of first principle approach, right? You can calculate you have the best calculator in our brain of us four, I think.
That's
what can be sort of the fastest way to make that happen?
To make what happen?
The transition that Tesla has to full self-driving, to CyberCab, to boring, to building factories, to the renewable energy economy and all that.
I think they can do it quite quick. I think the thing that Elon always says was the bottleneck. That's why I said humanoids. He said the bottleneck is people. The bottleneck is labor. The bottleneck is execution. Yep. Yeah. So I think he does have like good teams, and maybe he can already do like 3 or 4, let's say gigafactories or whatnot. But I think the real accelerator is, what if he can build, let's say, 10,000 of bots each quarter or a couple of thousand each month. It's going to accelerate everything. He doesn't need contractors. He's just like, this is my army. This needs to be done. This is the algorithm. Go. This is the team maybe that oversees it. So I think that's going to be the accelerator. And I'll tell you why. Because on the FSD part, it's all about safety. So it needs to be 99.99999% correct, right? It shouldn't have any flaws, etc.
Unless you're driving in a tunnel.
Unless you're driving in a tunnel. So that will all happen. I think they will also launch in Q2 this year with FSD. So I'm super bullish on it. But I think the real accelerator is going to be humanoids. And that's also the race I think they are in, which is, in the broader sense in America, energy and humanoids. And on the humanoids part,
the building of the factories.
Yeah, but the humanoids part, you also don't have to be at 100%. But like you can have a lot of regulatory stuff around it. Like it's too edgy. It can be an army and kill people and stuff. But it can be very useful in building a lot of things.
Deploy it for commercial use to consumers, then it's...
We have been in Texas, right? So we have visited a Tesla factory in Texas. And there was a whole parking lot filled with pickup trucks of contractors. You remember that? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
I remember all those small contractors just to get as soon as possible everything up and running.
Things going. But let's keep the wild card of Optimus sort of on our chest, right? So the Optimus doesn't develop that fast, and we do everything with human labor. How many factories can we build in the coming years if that's... Now we have the blueprint, right? We have the blueprint for the factory, for the energy factories. We have the blueprint for the gigafactories. We already know that China can do it in 9 months, but let's say China has more access to labor.
I think it's really going to be humanoids. That's going to be the differentiator.
Yeah,
the biggest one. So I fully agree on all the. I don't know. I really don't know. If you look at like what kind of things they're doing, so what Elon wants is he wants to get an end product, which is super useful. If you look at the hands, the degrees of like freedom that they have, I think it's more than the average human. That's how advanced they are. Have you seen it like running on a slope and then slipping and stuff? They're pretty far. If it's final, I think they're already building on like how are we gonna
for basic tasks, but for like construction is a different ball game. So you cannot deploy that army like from start to finish.
I think that's the so I'm fully on board with what Damian says, but I think that's going to be the change in the next 4 years.
Yeah. Well,
he talks of legends, isn't it? It's like the Roman army that you have these legends.
Yeah.
Legions, 5,000 of them. He talks in 1 legion, 2 legions, 3 legions.
Yeah, but look at China. Look at NVIDIA. Jensen Huang said it like I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Like humanoids is the thing, really.
Yeah,
it is the thing, but in rapid deployment and
coming back to Jensen Huang, he said the most innovative company. He works with the most innovative companies in the world, right? Like Meta, Google, Amazon, all that. But he said like what Elon have done with building his new supercluster.
Yeah, 19 days.
Did it in 19 days. Why can that happen? Because the Elon and all the smart people in Tesla, they had the realization that old style factories, were not utilizing the space in a proper way. And they said, well, if we put the microchips team, he said that already in 2016, if we put the microchips team for just a small, very, very small, like a millimeter improvement, they need to think months and months to come with a solution. And then what he did is he brought in the people of the microchip teams to the construction place and to the manufacturing blueprint, because they had the realization like a factory on the large scale is basically the same like a large microchip. Yeah, a large microchip. And to have like a 20, 50, 60, 200, 500,000% gain was so much easier in the factory than on the microchip. So those people were all working together, right? And I think now that vision, the vision of the machine that builds the machine, has always been like, let's build very large microchips and let's do that in a fast scale where it can be sort of rolled out in a predictable way. I think the supercluster, which is a very complex thing to build, because you need a lot of wiring, you need a lot of electricity, you need a lot of cooling. It's not an easy task to do that because all the other companies could not do it. So they have been looking at manufacturing things on scale and fast already for years and years and years. And the brightest engineers, not only for manufacturing, but also for chips, has been working on those projects. But the only thing holding them back was regulation all the time. And if that can be accelerated by humanoids, that's obviously even further accelerator. But I think that can be accelerated already with humans.
But let me tell you why he's going to press on that as well, because he sees the birth decline, right? And he always says the only solution now to it is basically the humanoids to get your GDP up. So if they want to make it the most prosperous country in the world, the USA, they have to win it.
Yeah, and to make more time for families to actually
and if they want to be the biggest guy in the room for the whole world, and they want to win from China, like the Jensen Huang presentation, I think 80% was Chinese humanoids. The Chinese understand what they need to do.
Yeah.
And the only way they can fix it really is to do it with where Tesla is.
You need to catch the fuck up.
Yeah. So anyway, let's make this prediction then. The list of what's going to happen in 25, 26 will be at least 5 times longer than what we have seen there on that screen.
Yeah, and I think the biggest opportunities will be
never coming up with a list anymore.
Shit list. But I think the biggest things we'll see is quicker ramp and earlier FSD enrollment, so Q2, still say it. And then I think by the end of the year, people will be amazed about humanoids. He already said it, 5,000 at the end of the year. 50,000 next year. That's going to be the biggest.
When is the Tesla Q4 earnings?
28 or 29?
No, it's not tomorrow. It's next week.
Yeah, it's 28 or 29.
They actually changed the date.
Because of the inauguration.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I think they're pushing some legislation now.
So what are we going to do tomorrow then?
Well, nothing.
Not watching the
earnings call.
we can try to do some work.
But I think, so again, like next week, on the... maybe around the table, what's a top watch for the earnings? Like, do you have any expectations? What are you looking forward to?
I'm very much looking forward to seeing energy again going through the roof, and that's actually my only.
You mean margins then, or because we already know the deployment, right?
Yeah, I'm really curious to the margins, production and deliveries. Like, I don't really care.
Okay.
I am a little bit curious with if they're going to come up with, for instance, the amount of inventory Model Y still outstanding.
Yeah, what I hope for is because yesterday we talked about your favorite subject, Kenny, EV credits, right? So
Tariffs.
Trump already announced that EV credits will be dismantled, basically, and every sort of subsidized stuff will be dismantled. I will be curious, like the administration signed off already like 200 things, right? Yesterday, they started right away. Okay, we're the Trump administration. We come to action, and Elon is closely involved, and that obviously raises questions to shareholders, like what does that mean? So I hope he can shine a little bit of light what deregulation is going to mean for Tesla as a company and for Tesla as shareholders.
That's a good one, yeah.
So. And for me, that would be sort of common sense thing to talk about. And I also expect Elon to shine a little bit of light on that, because I think the shareholder base also needs to be the confident that this administration is going to be beneficial for Tesla as a company.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Weave.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. I hope he brings his energy from yesterday on stage. And he's going to go all out, no rules, going to say a lot of stuff that he shouldn't supposed to say, but he's so excited it's going to happen that he's just going to blur it all out.
With or without salute?
Yeah, well, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
I forgot
Watch your
already
arms,
about
yeah.
it. But I think just as SpaceX, actually to hear a president say we're going to put the American flag on Mars.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think this is a hugely inspiring thing. We can now strive all together to make that happen, right? There was also one of the key elements of the success of the Kennedy presidency, where he could sort of nourish all the energy that people have in the country and strive to do some great new explorations again. Therefore I found it very telling that Elon was like super happy when they talked about that Mars mission, and people also forget about why Elon got involved. Well, that was simple, because the current administration we're holding his mission to Mars, and now that mission to Mars will be accelerated. So that means more launches. That means new factories for SpaceX where they can build more factories. That means support of the government to put the American flag, to actually bring people over there, etc. So I think that's the main topic for me. Like, okay, Elon, you have been working with Mr. Trump all the time. What is actually going to happen to your companies now when you can get things done? Yeah, very good. And that needs to be addressed, right? Because I can understand the uncertainty with shareholders as well.
It's going to be in question from the shareholders, no doubt.
Yeah,
that's.
I hope he's going to be more precise on like timelines, because he in the past he mentioned a couple of times like based on regulatory approvals X, Y, Z, right? So I hope that he's going to give more clearance on that, and that's it. Might be one of the reasons why they postponed for a week, to get it better, more clear, to get maybe some regulation off the table or in place to really be more precise.
It's a good point. It has never been postponed for that long, so there must be some. At least that's my assumption that there will be some.
But there also has never been like a very influential tech CEO that closely linked to an inauguration speech.
No, so basically it's the first time we have like a big guy sitting in office as well.
Yeah,
but
orange man bad.
He has never postponed these kind of things, because he can just fly over and then sit with the people and have the earnings call. So I think there should be a reason. Yeah,
definitely. So
must be work behind the scenes that needs to be.
Let's end it on a positive note and have
there's all positivity here.
You have a new list? You have a new list?
Yeah, especially for Damien.
We'll call you Mr. Shit List from now on.
I've been shutting my mouth and coming up with a new list. Well, let's look at this video just one more
What
time.
victory feels like. Yeah!
You're so awkward.
And this was no ordinary victory. This was a fork in the road of human civilization.
Look at his hair on the back of his head. It's so funny.
Did he got a nose job?
You know, there are elections that come and go. Some elections are, important. Some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
I think one of the best pictures that's about Elon with his son on his back, like on his neck. I really like that one as well.
My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured. Thanks to you. We're going to have safe cities, finally, safe cities. Secure borders, sensible spending, basic stuff.
This one is the best.
Basic stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah. But maybe we need to, edit in the whole video, because I think it's very monumental and
Definitely, we're going to start with it and we're going to end with it.
At least I have a lot of faith in in this whole thing, and I'm very happy to see Elon so much involved. Putting our freedoms first and making things happen. So.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by it as well, but they still have to show it, right? So now it's just starting. So let's see.
Are you from Europe, Netherlands, or?
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Well, they have the best chief executive officers in place.
Yeah,
Oh,
I have all
see.
confidence that it will work out.
No, great.
Shall we wrap it up, guys?
And, thanks.
For the next time?
Yeah. Okay, see you next week, gents.
Yeah, see you next week.
See you next week,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cheers.